Hello, and welcome to this session called New Mindset, New Results. We're going to look at personal accountability, we're going to look at your mindset, how to shift your focus, and how to build resilience. Firstly, we're going to talk about personal accountability. Personal accountability is taking ownership of your potential. So what is personal accountability? Personal accountability is your ability to take responsibility for your own experience. It's the process of tapping into your full potential and a commitment of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions to manage your performance. So, what does this mean? It means that whatever situation you find yourself in, you're in charge of that experience. And you need to be in control of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions to make it a positive one and reach your full potential. Throughout this session, I'm going to show you how to do that. It is said that the person with the greatest behavioural flexibility will control the situation. There's an activity you can try here. You don't have to, but it may help you understand a little bit about behavioural flexibility. So if I ask you to sit down and cross your legs, okay, now uncross them and cross them the other way. So if your right leg was on the top, put it on the bottom and vice versa. Okay, you can sit down now. So this explains a little bit about behavioural flexibility. The first time I asked you to cross your legs, you will have done it your default way, the way you always do it, the easy way. The second time I asked you to try something different. It was a bit more uncomfortable, but you still managed to do it. And that's behavioural flexibility. The person that's able to do something different, be out of their comfort zone, is the person that's going to succeed, particularly in a difficult situation. Really, you want to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Earlier, we talked about personal accountability, and I said that you need to be in control of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions to ensure you have a good experience. Any of you that have studied psychology will have probably heard of the chimp paradox. This is what we're going to talk about now. I'm going to talk about it at a high level, but if you'd like to find out more, a great book to read is The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters. He talks about there being 3 areas of your brain that help you make decisions. The first is the computer, which is your parietal. The second is the chimp, your limbic. And the third is your human brain, your frontal. Let's delve into those areas a little more. The computer part of your brain has 2 functions. It can think automatically for you using learned or programmed thoughts and behaviours, and it's a reference source for information, beliefs, and values. So I'll give you an example. So if somebody said to you, let's go over there and steal that car, your computer brain knows that that goes against your beliefs and values, so it comes with an instant response of, no thank you. Whereas if somebody says to you, would you like a piece of this delicious chocolate cake? Your computer brain knows you've eaten chocolate cake before and you like it, so its automatic response is, yes please. Your computer brain is like your autopilot. And now for the chimp brain. Your chimp brain is your survival response. You've probably all heard of your fight, flight, freeze response. When you're in a difficult situation, you either stand and fight, you run away, or you freeze and do nothing at all. Your chimp brain is constantly checking to see if you're under attack. Now these days, thankfully, we are rarely in mortal danger, but your chimp still sees stressful or embarrassing situations as attacks, and it doesn't think logically. A great example of the chimp brain is road rage. So you're driving along, somebody cuts you up, and instantly your chimp jumps into action. You might be shouting out the window, using rude hand gestures. That's your chimp brain. Now we all have a chimp brain, and it's not a bad thing. It can keep us alive. But those of us who can learn to recognise our chimp, control it, and switch to our logical human brain the fastest, will be those who reach success quickest. And finally, your human brain. Your human brain allows you to think logically. Because you have your chimp brain that can protect you, your human brain has developed so that it can think about the future and see the bigger picture. It can make plans such as your career plans. So we've talked about your chimp brain and your human brain and the importance of recognising your chimp and switching to your human brain to ensure you make good decisions. But how do you do that? Let's have a look at what your chimp brain thinks, feels and does in a stressful situation. We'll use an example of a difficult job market and you're struggling to secure your graduate role. So what might your chimp be thinking in that situation? It might think, I'm not good enough. Others will get the job and I won't. My career is ruined before it's even started. But if you're thinking with your logical human brain, you should be thinking, I'm as good as anybody else. If I prepare, I've got a good chance. And I may have to work harder to get it, but the career I want is still out there. And what might it be feeling? So if you're thinking, I'm not good enough, and that others will get the job and you won't, you might be feeling anxious, nervous, frightened, jealous, or angry. But if you know that you're as good as anybody else and that if you prepare, you've got a chance, you should be feeling energized, hopeful, excited, motivated, and calm. And what might your chimp be doing? If you're anxious, nervous, and frightened, you might be rushing things, applying to any role, and not being yourself. But if you're energized, hopeful, and excited, you should be preparing, being considered, and able to present the real you. So how do you shift focus? Your chimp focuses on the things that can't be changed, the given. Here it's a tough job market and there are less jobs to apply for. This is a given. You can't change it, but your chimp is throwing all of its bananas at it. It's not fair, it's too hard, I can't do it. But rather than focusing on what you can't change, look for what you do control and what you can influence. So what do you control? You control your CV and covering letter. I'm not going to tell you how to write a CV. I'm sure you've had sessions about that at university. What I am going to talk about are some tips to help you stand out in a difficult market. I'm sure you've heard it before, but you must tailor your CV and covering letter for every application you make, and that's where your research comes in. I know you're always told to do your research, but don't just look at what the company does and who their CEO is, although this is very useful information. Have a look at what their mission statement and their values are. Look at how they align to what you have done. I know you guys do some amazing internships. Make sure your CV reflects this, but also include any extra projects you've worked on, especially if they reflect the company's values. For example, if a company's value is diversity and inclusion, and you've been part of our diversity employee resource group during your internship, include that in your CV and covering letter. When you're writing your covering letter, you need to show that your values align. An example of this might be, Dear whoever, so whoever is advertising the role, I'm very interested in your graduate role as business analyst. I was a business analyst intern at whatever company you are at. During my time at this company, I was also part of the Diversity Employee Resource Group. I see that diversity is one of your values. This is also very important to me. Then you need to tell them what you did, starting with the tasks that you were given. So, as part of the Employee Resource Group, myself and a small group were tasked with attracting more females into technology. Then, what you actually did. To make more females aware of the company, we ran some sessions for female students, including CV writing workshops and a Meet Our Female Leaders session. Then you move on to the result that you had. As a result of this, we had 6 females join our grad program for the following year compared to 3 the previous year. Always show the impact that you had. When you write your CV, as well as writing your bullet points about what you did as part of your role, make sure you include a condensed version of the projects that you worked on, because not everybody will read your covering letter. Now let's move on to practice. Do some practice interviews. Practice some face-to-face, and if you can, do some using an app like Zoom. These are likely to be the way that companies are doing their interviews for the foreseeable future. Rope some friends and family in to help you. There are 2 types of question you are likely to be asked at interview. The most common is competency-based. The second is less well used but becoming more popular and assesses potential rather than experience. Competency-based questions are things like, tell me about a time when. So, tell me about a time when you've worked in a team. Those that assess potential will ask what you would do in a certain situation. So, for example, what would you do if you were leading a meeting and someone kept interrupting you? There are lots of examples of competency-based questions to practice on the web. There are less potential testing questions, as they're purposely meant to be unprepared, authentic answers. But if you do get asked them, take your time, answer honestly, and be yourself. What can you influence? You can influence your network. If you take nothing else from this session, make sure you go away from here and connect with me on LinkedIn. That way my network, which is mostly early in career recruiters and managers, or ex-graduates, interns and apprentices who have been in exactly the same position as you are now, become your wider network. And that means that every time they see a comment on one of my posts that you have posted, they can see you. They see who you are, what you're studying, and that you're looking for a role. You'll have me as a connection on LinkedIn, but how else can you build your network? First of all, follow companies in the sector you're interested in. That way, you'll keep up with trends and challenges in the market, and when you go for interviews, you'll be able to give up-to-date, intelligent answers about the market and what companies and their competitors are doing. Next, connect with people who are working in a role or a sector that you are interested in. Don't just send a connection request, always send a note with it. Something like, I see that you're a business analyst in the IT sector. I'm really interested to find out more about this area of work and would love to connect with you. Another great way to connect is to use your university alumni. Find someone who attended your university. Ideally, they'll work in the field or sector you're interested in or have studied what you are. Again, connect with them using a note. Something like, I noticed that you studied at whatever university. I've just graduated from there and your career path interests me. I'd really like to connect with you. Not everyone will respond favourably to these connection requests, but people are much more likely to connect with you if you add a note with a valid reason. Another way to make yourself known, widen your network, and create LinkedIn content is to get involved in a project. I can give you a personal example here. I wrote an article on LinkedIn about my nephew securing an apprenticeship. He wasn't sure if he should do A-levels or an apprenticeship. He was lucky enough to do some work experience with me at Microsoft, and rather than sit with his boring aunt for a week, I arranged for him to spend some time with apprentices and interns from around the business so he could get a feel of lots of different roles and talk to people of his own age about apprenticeships and university. This led him to decide to do an apprenticeship. My article was about the importance of impactful, interesting work experience and how we're letting our young people down if we're not giving them exciting opportunities. Someone from Rate My Placement saw my article and was looking at work experience options. I ended up working with them on mapping best practices for work experience. I created content for LinkedIn by reaching out to my network to ask if anyone was willing to talk to me about what their company's work experience looked like. I widened my network as I got to speak to lots of people in my sector. It was a great opportunity. If somebody offers you an opportunity to work on a project, don't be afraid, go for it and challenge yourself. Throughout this whole process, however long it takes you to secure a role, keep learning. It's great for your own knowledge, but also it can show an employer that as well as searching for a role, you've been trying to fill your skills and knowledge gaps. This lets the employer know that you're serious about being the best person you can be. Another aspect of learning, and sometimes a difficult one, is feedback. Always ask for feedback, especially if you're unsuccessful in securing a role. It's really important to understand how you can improve, particularly if the feedback is recurring or there's a pattern. We can't always see something in ourselves, so if you read some feedback and can't see it or don't believe it, ask someone else. Ask a friend or a family member. If you can, get a mentor. It doesn't have to be formal. It might be someone you've been talking to on LinkedIn or someone from your internship or your university. Sometimes it's good to speak to a mentor rather than a friend or family member because friends and family members love you and might not want to hurt your feelings by talking about feedback. A mentor, although they care, can be more objective and talk about things from a career perspective, not just a personal one. Now we're going to talk about mindsets. In the corporate world, you'll hear about fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. I'm going to talk about them briefly now, but if you want to learn more, a great book to read is Mindset by Carol Dweck. A fixed mindset tells you that you either have a talent for it or you don't. You're either born with it or you're not. It's frightened of failure. A growth mindset loves to learn. It's not afraid of failure because to fail is to learn. It is said, don't be afraid to fail, but fail fast, learn fast, and move on. If you have a growth mindset, you're not afraid to try new things, and you learn to love learning as much as the outcome. Then nothing is a failure because you've always learned something. A growth mindset is the power of yet. I can't do this yet. I don't understand yet. I don't know the answer yet. I don't have a job yet. Let's have a look at how your mindset reflects on your actions and your growth. A fixed mindset believes you can't do something, which leads to you taking no action, because what's the point? You can't do it, so therefore there's no growth. Your growth mindset says, I can't do this yet, which leads to you taking action to fill your skills gaps and your knowledge gaps, which leads to growth. Just like before, when we talked about what your chimp brain thought compared to your human brain, let's look at how your fixed mindset thinks compared to your growth mindset. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but I'm just going to pick up on a couple. Your fixed mindset thinks, I'm not good at this, I give up. But your growth mindset says, what am I missing? Can I use a different strategy? Your fixed mindset says, this is too hard. But your growth mindset says, this might take some time. Your fixed mindset says, plan A didn't work. But your growth mindset says, there's always plan B. I'm going to talk about resilience now, but before I talk about what resilience is, I want to talk a little bit about what it isn't. Resilience is not looking like you've got this all the time. It's not looking like you're juggling all the balls and looking great on the outside, but really struggling on the inside. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. It's really what we've been talking about the whole of this session. It's about recognizing your mindset, being able to shift that mindset, and adapting quickly in tough situations. I've got an activity now. You don't have to do it, but it just shows in a practical way what resilience is. Okay, so on the slide here, we've got to stand up. You don't have to stand up, you can sit down if you like, but whether you choose to stand up or sit down, what I want you to do is reach out and touch something. Okay, so I'm going to assume that most of you used your hands. So what I want you to do now is put your hands behind your back so that you can't use them, and I want you to touch that item again. Okay, so I'm assuming that you all managed it, and I don't know whether you used your head, your feet, your tongue, who knows? But the fact is you still managed to do the task that I asked you to do. I took the easy option away from you, but it took you a nanosecond, I expect, to be able to still complete that task. And that's what resilience is. It's about having the easy option taken away, but rather than concentrating on the fact that the easy option is gone, it's quickly thinking, what else can I do? Let's talk about some techniques for resilience. Number one is get some perspective. Look at the bigger picture. It is a tough market out there. It may take you longer to find a role, but you will find one. And the fact that you are going through this difficult time and you are struggling to find a role is actually building resilience for the future. If you're ever made redundant or something in the future, you know that even in a tough market, you can find a role. Number two is acceptance. Accept what's happened. We talked about it earlier. Don't focus on the given. Accept it and move on. Yes, this has actually happened, but it's okay. Let's move on. Number three is take a break. When you're looking for a job, it should be a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday activity because you are rewriting your CV and covering letter, you're working on your LinkedIn profile and reaching out to your network, you're practicing your interviews, you're going for interviews, you're making sure your suits and everything are clean. It is a busy time, but make sure you take a break. Go for a walk, grab a coffee, watch Netflix for an hour, whatever you choose, but make sure you take a break. Number four is reflect, and this is something you can do during and after this experience. So whilst you're going through this time, have a think, what could I do differently? Am I doing the right things? Am I doing the best thing to help me find a role? And at the end of the experience, when you're loving life again and you're in the best job ever, Think back about what you could have done differently, how you could have worked in a different way to perhaps find your job faster. And number 5, and perhaps most importantly, is reach out. This is a difficult time, and it's okay not to be okay. If you are struggling, talk to somebody. Friends, family, anybody. Someone professional if you need to. The Samaritans and Calm are all available if you need help. And my final technique is to flip it. Turn a negative into a positive. So I don't know if you've seen lately, there's an actress who has not been able to work because of the pandemic. She is a theatre actress, and she's taken to doing parodies of the politicians, and it's all on YouTube, and she's been offered all sorts of work because of it. So you can turn a negative experience into a positive one. The same with Joe Wicks. He started doing his PE for the kids to keep them motivated, and he's now turning down offers from Nike and Reebok, and he's got his own podcast and all sorts. So try and turn any negative experience into a positive one. Let's go over some key takeaways from this session. Be in charge of your own experience. Recognise your mindset and switch focus when needed. Concentrate on what you can control and influence, and ask for help if you need it. Think differently and network, network, network. Thank you for listening to this session. I really hope it helped you. I have a genuine interest in trying to help people who are early in their career. So if there's anything else that you want some hints and tips on, anyone else you'd like to hear from, please let me know and I can try and set that up.